that were made long ago. I have some cracks in me. They have been filled with gold. Well, that's what they used back then, when they had a bowl to mend. It did not hide the cracks. It made them shine instead. So now every old scar shows from every time that it grows. And anyone's eyes can see I'm not what I used to be. But in a collector's mind, all of these jagged lines make me want you. Worth a much higher price. I like those Japanese clothes. I was made long ago. I have some cracks you can see. See how they shine. Gold. You get the cold coming on version. So there's this guy walking down the street when he falls into a hole. Now the walls are so steep he can't get out. A doctor passes by and the guy shouts up, "Hey doc, I'm stuck down this hole. Can you help me out?" The doctor writes out a prescription, throws it down the hole, and moves on. Then a priest comes along and the guy shouts up, "Father, I'm stuck down this hole. Can you help me out?" The priest writes out a prayer, throws it down the hole, and moves on. Then a friend walks by. "Hey Joe, it's me. Can you help me out?" And the friend jumps in the hole. Our guy says, "What are you, stupid? Now we're both down here." And the friend says, "Yeah, but I've been down here before, and I know the way out." This story may be familiar to some of you who are also fans of the West Wing, but it helps me frame a story that I know and many of you may know, a journey out of the hole. My story, well, to use another Hollywood reference, this time from the Divine Secrets of the Yaya Sisterhood, my story begins in 2004 when I dropped my basket. I was struggling to make sense of my life. On one hand, a corporate drone shuffled from New York to Connecticut to North Carolina, working too many hours in a dog-eat-dog world with no release, versus my personal life, a queer spiritual woman longing for connection, missing loved ones both distant and deceased, feeling very broken and divided. I was exhausted from this desire to balance this divided life. I burned out and I fell into a major depression. As I began to look for a way out of this hole, I found a lot of messages about how to become whole again. Madison Avenue and the self-help industry told me that wholeness was everything and could be achieved for a price. Yet the more I heard how I had to fix my flaws, the deeper the hole got, and the more broken I felt. This desire for wholeness caused more pain, Because like so many of the Madison Avenue promises, wholeness, well, the way it's sold, wholeness is a myth. So what does that mean for getting out of this hole? I mean, if wholeness isn't the way, then what can we do? I know that I was in deep, and I had no way of knowing how I was going to get out. And then a friend walked by. Well, not a friend exactly. A book written by a psychologist named Dina Glauberman. The book was called The Joy of Burnout, and this book jumped in the hole with me. In her book, she talked about the physical, mental, and psychological exhaustion that comes from our drive to be everything, do everything, care for everything, balance everything. But instead of calling us to fix the problems that led us to the burnout, to patch up those holes, she suggests that we can get out by learning from the burnout. Her first lesson is wait. Right? Yeah. But waiting means giving up the struggle to try and find the thing, right? Waiting says take a breath, take a break, and listen. And yeah, it's not easy. We are still in that hole. Waiting in this hole is where things are still hurtful and awful and empty. We are broken, not whole. We are profane, not sacred. We are ugly, not beautiful. But the waiting, the listening, the breathing, gives us time to hear what might help us. So for me, there was this throwaway line in the middle of something else Glauberman was talking about in the book, but it would stop me in my tracks. She wrote, I asked life that tormenting question, why is it you always give me everything but the thing I really want? And life, like a good Jewish mother, answered a question with a question. Why is it that whatever I give you, you still complain? Fine. So I realized that being in this hole, there was this experience of feeling like I had nothing, I was nothing, and that nothing good was going to come to me. So in what I thought was a little act of defiance, I said, fine, I'll show you what I don't have. And so I sat down and I made a list. So it started with the pen and the pad I was writing on. Pen, pad. And then the sofa I was sitting on. And then my cat jumped up and I wrote cat. And then the bookshelf across the room, okay, books. And oh yeah, the magazine subscriptions. And well, if I look at my desk over there, I see pens and markers and a computer and a mug from my alma mater and a picture taken with my ex in England. Soon the paper was filled to the brim. I began to sort them out in what seemed like good categories and realized that not only did I have a lot of what I needed, food, shelter, employment, I had a lot of things that are higher on Maslow's hierarchy of needs too. I had friends, I had family, I had hobbies, health insurance, transportation, security. And those things then pointed to the intangibles. A sense of humor, an artist's passion, a love of language, curiosity, compassion, and a sense of connection to something bigger. Something we might call hope. And then Glauberman's second lesson of burnout is give up hope. I know. Didn't say this was easy. But as she explained, giving up hope is about letting go. It is the opposite of hopelessness, she says, because it is trusting in ourselves and in what may be given half a chance and loads of patience. It's about forgiveness and relieving the pressure. And mostly, it's about giving up hope for a better past. I'm going to repeat that. It is about giving up hope for a better past. We can't change the decisions we've made. We can't change who we have been and the place even that we find ourselves. I realized that I needed to let go of my angst over being this corporate drone, of being overworked and isolated. I realized at that point I couldn't go back to corporate America. I realized I couldn't bring loved ones back from the dead. I couldn't change any choice I had made, for good or for ill. I could only learn from what I had done and experienced and be thankful for those experiences. I could only keep the faith, which was Glaberman's third lesson. So keeping the faith is about surrender, deciding we can trust ourselves and that we are already whole. Again, easier said than done. I mean, how can I be whole? I'm a broken mess. I spent all this time down in a hole. I cracked up. I'm full of cracks. And then a voice saying, there's a crack in everything. That's how the light gets in. Which many of you know is a line from a Leonard Cohen song called Anthem. So soon after, I met a Hindu goddess. Her name is Akhilandeshwari. Now, Ishvari in Sanskrit means goddess or female power or female deity. And Akhilanda essentially translates to never not broken. In other words, Akhilandeshwari is the always broken goddess. She's portrayed as puzzle pieces or pieces that are not connected completely. And yet, the energy that is drawn or painted around her holds her together. Blogger Julie Peters notes that Akhilanda derives her power from being broken, in flux, pulling herself apart, living in different constant cells at the same time, never becoming a whole that has limitations. You see, the thing about going through broken times, she continues, is that one of the things you lose is your future, your expectation of what your story was going to become. And of course, this is terrifying. But Akhilanda invites us to make a choice for how to go forward. We gave up hope for a better past, so our stories about the past don't predict our future experiences. We are in flux, in flowing in these new ways with this incredible opportunity, moment to moment, to decide how we want to put the pieces back together. We have a choice to hide the brokenness with carefully hidden repairs and a new coat of paint, or honor the brokenness. Like the kintsugi, the Japanese art of mending bowls. Oh no, are we still having a... Oh. It's okay? It's all right. I'll just pause and say that there was a moment a few years ago when we made a big deal, turn off your cell phones, silence your pagers. And then from the worship closet, halfway through the time of silent meditation, a cell phone rings. And you're all really like, oh my God, is that really a thing? And then I realized, oh, it was mine. So phones happen, right? So let me go back just a little bit, right? So we're talking about Akhilanda, who invites us to make this choice about how to go forward. We gave up hope for a better past, so our stories about the past don't dictate how we go forward. We're in flux, flowing in new ways with this incredible opportunity, moment to moment, to decide how we want to put the pieces back together. We have the choice to, hide the brokenness with carefully hidden repairs and a new coat of paint, or honor the brokenness, like the kintsugi from our song Japanese Bowl, mending with a celebration of copper and gold and silver. See, because no matter how we treat the cracks, we get to put ourselves together in awesome new ways. No matter what anyone else says or thinks, or how many times we have to do it, no matter how many times we're told that we're broken, or ugly, or worthless, or a failure, whether that message comes from others or comes from ourselves. Every bit of brokenness is a key to our wholeness, full of cracks and differently beautiful. Now, when I started putting the pieces of my life back together differently out of this divided life that sunk me in that hole, I realized that just saying goodbye to corporate America, just saying goodbye to exhaustion and negativity, just saying goodbye to North Carolina itself wasn't enough. I could do some of this work on my own, of course, but I could not do it all alone. In his book, A Hidden Wholeness, Parker Palmer says that the journey toward inner truth is too taxing to be made solo. Lacking support, the solitary traveler soon becomes weary or fearful and is likely to quit the road. The path is too deeply hidden to be traveled without company. Finding our way requires the kind of discernment that can happen only in dialogue. We need community to find the courage to venture into the alien lands that the inner teacher may call us to. And so, in putting the pieces back together, I intentionally sought community, and not only coming back to upstate New York where my family lived, but also joining the UU congregation of Saratoga Springs, which was a perfect place to be held in the expansive embrace of our faith and our faith communities. This faith that teaches us that our very humanness means that we have inherent worth and dignity. This faith that teaches us there is always a place for us, even in our brokenness. The Reverend Robert Walsh writes that Universalists believe that the fate of the human being was like that. No matter how rough the trip might have been or how badly you behaved, at the end you would come home. It would be a place of trust and safety and love. Our faith is a place of trust and safety and love. Wow. Not just that congregation, not just my family, but the very totality of life, the universe, and everything is a place of trust and safety and love, where I can be never not broken. I'm whole. You are whole. Holy and sacred, full of holes and whole. Every single one of us with the cracks and the scars that are evidence of a life lived through grief and trauma and sadness and illness. Every single one of us going through things no one else could imagine. Every single one of us always in flux, always putting ourselves together differently. Every single one of us with our own stories of how we got out of the hole. Every story sacred and valuable and meaningful. Every single one of us who has our own story of the whole. Every one of them helpful. Every single one of us never not broken, but instead called always, despite of and because of our cracks, to love anyway. Theologian Henri Nouwen says this: "The great mystery of love is not that we are asked to live as if we are not hurting, as if we are not broken. In fact, we are invited to recognize our brokenness as a brokenness in which we can come in touch with the unique way that we are loved. The great invitation is to live your brokenness under the blessing. I cannot take people's brokenness away, and people cannot take my brokenness away. But how do you live in your brokenness? Do you live your brokenness under the blessing or under a curse? The great call of love is to put your brokenness under the blessing." In the blessing of brokenness, we can find a measure of comfort, a call to grace and joy. Joy in having made it out of the hole. Joy in helping each other out. Joy in helping others out. Joy in loving. Joy in the very complex, beautiful brokenness of life itself. We are meant not to be perfectly whole, but to be humans in our human messiness, growing into harmony with the divine and each other. We are human, which means we are holy, which means we are whole. Now I invite you into just a moment of quiet reflection, feeling your own wholeness. We are whole, even in the broken places, even where it hurts. We are whole, even in the places where fear impedes our full engagement with life, where self-doubt corrupts our self-love, where shame makes our faces hot and our souls cold. We are whole, even in those places where perfectionism blunts the joy of full immersion, where good enough does not reside except in our silent longings, where our gaps must be fast filled with substance, accomplishment, and frenzied activity. We are whole, where we would doubt our own goodness, richness, fullness, and depth, where we would doubt our own significance, our own profoundness. We are whole even in our fragility, even where we feel fragmented, alone, insubstantial, insufficient. We are whole even as we are in process, even as we stumble, even as we pick up ourselves again. For we are whole. We are whole. Repeat that with me. We are whole. So now let us sing a message of wholeness to one another. 1053 in the teal hymnal. Hopefully you know it already and don't need the book. Or you'll pick it up and it will sink into your body. Yes, you may rise.